Yeah. Yeah.
Gives me lots of time.
Okay.
All right, welcome to our council meeting for April 1st, 2025. I'm chairing for this evening as Madam Mayor is on the road and I'm unable to be with us here in council chambers. So please bear with me as we hopefully not struggle with this. But we will start as we usually do with our land acknowledgement, and I will take the lead on that for this evening. So as we meet today, I would like to take a moment to recognize the importance of the land on which we are gathered. The municipality of West Nipissing respectfully acknowledges that we are located on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Dokis First Nations, covered by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. We honor and recognize their historical connection to the land and value their significant contributions in shaping and strengthening our communities. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility towards reconciliation and improving our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. We'll ask if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest from anyone here or online. Not seeing any.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that the addendum for the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting held on April the 1st, 2025 be adopted as presented.
Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that the agenda for the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting held on April the 1st, 2025 be adopted as presented.
Any questions or comments on the agenda? Seeing any, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, so our first item that we have is under our delegations and petitions. We have a delegation this evening from West Nipissing Pride, and I'd like to take this opportunity to invite Sebastian Michel to the podium to provide the presentation.
Good evening, Your Worship, distinguished members of council and staff. Thank you for having me tonight. I won't take too much of your time. You guys know me. For the new members of council that I hadn't had a chance to see in person here, Councillor Georges and Councillor Rowley. I'm with West Nipissing Pride. We are a not-for-profit organization here in town. We advocate for equality, awareness, and we do this by doing community outreach programs here in town, events, and initiatives. So we are here tonight, I am here tonight on their behalf, and we kindly requesting your permission for some of our programming we have for June. Nothing new, same as usual. So the first one would be for the upcoming Pride Parade, which would be our 3rd annual this year. So we need approval for the road closures. Same routes as we had for previous years. So Ethel Street from Nipissing to King, King Street to Queen, Queen Street to, Queen Street between King and Main Street, and then back up Main Street. So the first point there. We also kindly request permission to set tables next to Sonia's patio. So that is the municipal property right beside her. We would set up some tables there. We have some of our community outreach, such as Out Loud in North Bay. We have them set up there. We have the Lighthouse, which is an organization here in town. So we have some tables set up for people to have questions after the parade. We have merch there. So that would be number 2. Number 3, we kindly request permission to raise again the inclusive pride flag at Minnehaha Bay, as we've done in previous years. So in previous years, we just have the flag there or a member of maintenance, and we take care of the rest of the ceremony there. And of course, we invite everyone on council and staff who would like to attend the celebration. It will be held there on June 2nd at 12. You're more than welcome to say a few words if you want. Just come and see us. It'll be a great time. Hopefully we get some sunshine. We also kindly request to install the inclusive flags on other municipal properties. So in the past, we've had them downtown in the core on King Street, which of course we'd like to have this year as well. But we're thinking of as well to expand on that on other properties such as the rink and field, the Cash Bay Hall where the post office is. Another point. And we'd also like to proclaim June as Pride Month, as we've done before. And that is all. I won't take too much of your time.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the presentation, for the information, for the requests that are being brought forward. I'll open the floor if there are any questions from any members of council. Anyone in the room or online? Not seeing any. It's always a good sign for a thorough presentation. Again, I just want to share. I appreciate you, coming forward with the requests on behalf of West Nipissing Pride. Like you mentioned, it is something that the municipality has supported in years past, and based on the no questions here, it looks like we're going to be supporting again for this year. Just in terms of process, I believe we'll bring this back to one of our future meetings, likely early in May. For resolutions and proclamations and whatnot that we need to approve here at the table. Last call, questions? No? All right. Well, I'll say thank you for your time, Sebastian, and we appreciate it. And looking forward to working together again for the next Pride Month in June.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the next item that we have under delegations and petitions is a petition that we received on March 31st, so yesterday. As per process, this petition is related to zoning bylaws, and as we've been instructed by staff, this will move forward to our Planning Advisory Committee meeting taking place next week, and following that, we'll return to council for further discussion. So appreciate receiving the petition, and we all received it within our packages today as an update. Next item that we have on our agenda is the Committee of the Whole, and we have 2 committees this evening. I didn't chat with Madam Mayor on this part, so I am definitely available for general government. It's probably easier to chair from the room here. If that's okay with Madam Mayor, can do that, or if you'd like to do it from your location, here's better. All right. So we'll move on with our first item under general government. That's item 5.1.1, the asset management plan for 2025. Again, we've received this within our package, and I'm going to assume through Jay or through our CEO that I'll go over to Ms. Craddock for that update.
Thank you. So we did present this at the beginning of March to council. And it was one that was a lot of information. There was a lot of stuff there, and council just sort of requested some time to take a look through it to see if there was any sort of questions on the asset management plan itself. I am just going to kind of do just a quick recap that this is a part of a longer process in asset management planning for the province. There is one more stage of asset management plan that has to come through as far as far as the things that we need to include and where the asset management planning is going. And after that point, asset management plans are actually meant to be reviewed and revised regularly, routinely from councils. And so that this level is a lot looking at those levels of service and that kind of policy piece. It incorporates not just our core assets, which is the linear assets, so roads, water and sewer, and our treatment plants, but it also includes the non-core assets, which are our facilities and significantly our fleet and machinery and equipment. And we did talk last time about some of the challenges that we're going to have going forward as far as not just the meeting financial needs, but just sort of meeting some of those tracking and monitoring those levels of service and sections that are still there. But I think we had a really good talk last time, so I will turn it back to you, Councillor Rastul. That was sort of my summary then.
Thank you for that. As I mentioned, we had copies of these in our package. We also had the update, as was mentioned at a previous meeting. I'll open the floor for any questions from council. We've had some opportunity to review the documents, so the floor is open. See Madam Mayor online. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just had right now one question. We'll see where else that goes. On page 12 on the executive summary, it's listed or stated that we would need to invest 16.6 million into municipally owned assets every year. What, approximately what are we doing now? Like, is there a gap there that we need to be aware of as far as budgeting and not letting ourselves get any further behind?
If I can, absolutely, there is a gap now, and when we look at sort of 5-year plans and even our budget year to year, when you look at those projects that have to be deferred, that's where our gap is sitting. So what we spend year to year actually depends a lot on funding that we have. We rely a tremendous amount on funding in order to secure our capital right now. So if we look within Public Works, there's sort of about $1 million of sort of taxpayer money that goes in, and then we rely on sort of $2 million of funding plus other grants that we can get. So there's sort of $3 million of secure funding there, another $1 million of secure funding in community services, and about the same in water and sewer. So as far as what our secure funding is, we are substantially less than that, and then we do rely on these sort of one-time application-based fundings in order to make up some of the shortfall. Now, some of this then is that number exercise that we talked about. There are some areas that do need some tweaking, because it takes a look at what that's based on how we're doing replacement values right now, and our replacement values on our linear assets are pretty good, because we use so in 2025 I'll be doing it based on 2024 actual numbers. We've got some of the studies that have been done to sort of support that. Where we get into a little bit grayer areas on what our actual replacement values are things like our facilities and things, so that we can do components but not necessarily entire facilities. So there absolutely is a gap, but there is also some grayness in those numbers as well.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up or is that good? No. Okay, looking around the room, any other questions or comments on the asset management plan? See a follow-up question from Madam Mayor. Go ahead.
So how is this plan to be used going forward? Like, I know it's a requirement legislatively through the Ministry of Infrastructure, but what's their intent, and how is this going to be? How is this entire plan, once it's done, gonna, how is it really going to be used in actuality?
That's always the challenge, right? And the provincial legislation is good legislation, and the intent is good intent, and then how you use it is sort of the kicker in it. What I would like to see out of this stage of the plan be the really significant thing is those setting of the technical service levels and the public service levels. And then we've got bars to monitor against. And it also makes some of that decision making easier, and it will help prioritize projects and give council a bit of ability to say, you know what, so if we look at look at the scope in roads on technical service levels, and that our average pavement condition index is actually, say we've got some stats year over year, and we see a decline in our average pavement condition index, then we have a sort of really clear goals on where money should be spent. And then when we look at where our assets are, one of the things that all of our roads need study do is give us an evaluation of pavement condition index on paved roads. And then you've got kind of this bar or tool or marker saying, you know what, we think everything should be 6 and above. So again, it just helps you focus on where money should be spent. And so out of this stage of planning, that's what I really would like to see both council and managers and the sort of the public to understand is how those, as we start to monitor those service levels, how they roll back into decision-making and priority making. Now, part of the next stage of the asset management planning is going out and taking not necessarily the technical, but levels of service that the public can comment on and understand a little bit more, that may tie, again, more to facilities and things that may tie to hours of programming within roads, that might tie to things like how many potholes they have and things like that, that again, there's sort of a more less technical part that the public has some input on. And again, it just helps drive that decision making is what, the intent of the asset management planning is to hopefully streamline some of those decision making when council is faced with such competing priorities as far as where the money gets spent, particularly when you're looking at a municipality the size of ours, where geographically and distance wise, it's so big, and to have that connection to a plan. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I hope I did.
You did kind of. I do have a follow-up on that. I like to say that knowledge is power, and I'm wondering whether once this is a little bit more complete, whether it's possible to get kind of a quick one-page breakdown. So when we look at advocacy at the provincial and federal government, there's a lot of noise being made by municipalities across the province for more sustainable funding models. And it would be really great to have some kind of hard data and fast facts on to what exactly the state of our infrastructure deficit is, because it does tell a story. And when we're out trying to push for more sustainable funding, better funding models, or increased funding to certain programs, something like that would be useful in my role as well. So I just like to point out, I think that there's some really good stuff here, and that I would love to kind of, I hope we can speak as a council or council to staff about how we can use some of that data to further some of the advocacy goals. And then I did have another question, but my brain's not here and I don't have a pen, so I didn't write it down. But it is, I'm interested to see as this process continues. So thank you. Would something like that be possible, to have those numbers as kind of an easy reference for me?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly. I think most municipalities are sharing their infrastructure deficit right now for that reason. And so a roll up from a communication perspective as to, there's 100 and some pages here. And so the roll up to the key salient points for presentation should happen. Yeah.
Okay, I do remember my other question. It was whether staff feels that they have the tools right now as far as any kind of software or systems that they use to monitor it or to track this kind of stuff. So are there opportunities for us to modernize or improve systems on the inside for asset management? And is that something that we should discuss further as part of this kind of long-term planning and make the whole organization kind of work better for the people who have to do the work?
Well, I think we do have asset management software. As to the efficacy of it, I'd ask Ms.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes and no. So we have an asset management software, and it does asset management inventory very well. It does some of the life cycle costing very well. But then you get to departments, and they have got some very specific needs. And so our roads folks look at the world a little differently than our facility folks do. And I'm trying to avoid having 4 different pieces of software doing the same thing. It's absolutely something to look at. I like our software. I'm not in love with our software that we have. And certainly our departments aren't as in love with the software. So Steph's shaking his head. So it is absolutely something we can look at to make it, as we roll through this, to make it more accessible to the managers, because the managers need it in their hands, not just coming through me to them.
So staff, we meet regularly at the director level and at the management level, but mostly at the director level. And certainly there's a need for a cohesive software, an integrative software that satisfies both. But then when you start getting into the different departments, not everything is absolutely perfect. So we're still searching for that perfect solution right now. That meets, because to actually put a square peg in a round hole could change our operations quite a bit. So we're trying to find that with the minimum disruption. But so right now we're a little bit more manual in our integration, but we are working at that.
Okay, great. I just, I know that there is some good stuff out there, and
We'll come to you.
yeah, oh no, yeah, and in trying to look for something new, that creates work in itself, and we do understand the amount of work that staff is already under. So when you go to changing systems, that creates a whole nother issue. But I would be open, if you do find something that solves some of those problems. I think as councillor, at least as me as mayor, I would love to hear those things come back to council if you need support for that. So thank you. And with that, I will stop talking.
Thank you for those questions, Madam Mayor. I'll go around to see if there's any other comments. Colleagues are on the table. Councillor Larrabee.
Thank you, Mr. Jamie, Councillor Jamie, Deputy Mayor. I just came back from Ogra, and yes, there is some devices out there that makes the job way easier for the analysis of our roads. At driving at regular speed, will analyze your pavement, potholes, where it needs to be. And another thing that I found is sometimes that you were saying is sometimes you don't tackle the worst road, you tackle the next to the best. So that way you just put a little bit of money, you bring that one to top notch, and you work your way down. You match the really rough ones, but put more money on where the road is next to perfect. So that way you put less money to keep it. Because if you tackle the worst one, this one will work its way down to being the worst one. Then you have to put a lot more money into it. So those are all strategies that Ogra will put a person up to date to. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Larrabee. Councillor Gagne.
Thank you, Councillor Resto. One thing that I didn't see in the report, and I'm not sure if I missed it there, but was usage of buildings and usage of our infrastructure. Are those stats that we have? And if not, I think it's good to have them. I'm always worried when my common rule of thumb, if we don't use it 50%, why are we keeping it? And can we move it somewhere else to offer those same services? And in regards to the infrastructure, I'd be interested in seeing any infrastructure, like example, the Donneville Bridge that we inherited from the province. What's the government plan to help us to kind of replace those? So I know we're advocating for the Champlain Bridge, but we have other infrastructure that we inherited, but not necessarily. I don't think we're getting the necessary funding to actually replace those, unless I'm mistaken. But those are just a few comments. If maybe we could highlight those, be a lot easier to do a delegation or to meet ministers and say, well, we've inherited this because of amalgamation. we don't have the funding, so we need help from you guys. And before we start shutting everything down, maybe it would help. So I'd just like to maybe ask those, identify those questions.
Well, I think on the first question, Elisa or Ms. Craddock could speak to the usage aspect of it.
So the usage, we absolutely do have statistics on usage. And as I said, when we talked last time, that the technical levels of service for the core infrastructure is really prescribed in the legislation. The technical levels of service that we include as far as our non-core things like facility was a little bit more up to grabs. So we absolutely can just add, a service with the metric being kind of a performance based on usage, so that we have that to track that. Absolutely. So that was one that we can put in there.
So with respect to, the mayor spoke to it and is speaking to a ton of other municipalities. I'm reading in the paper, or is there a paper still? Is that online or is it paper? Anyway, the infrastructure person in Sudbury is talking about their deficit and what they need to spend, like $100 million a year or something like that to get back in shape. So everybody is singing the same page, and on an order of magnitude, this has not been an issue that is new. The fact that we're doing it, and one of the reasons they're probably getting into asset management planning is to assist municipalities in proper planning. So they're legislating it on us, and they're also looking at us to see, what we're doing in terms of our adherence to the plan when we're applying for funding. As for funding, there is stable funding that we get, OMPF. There's relatively stable funding that we're getting, and then there's special funding. And the special funding, unfortunately, is a competition-based thing. So, and they have very specific criteria. And, we could have a look at and make a pitch to the province to say, we assumed all of this 25 years later, Councillor Gagne. We made a lot of those pitches in 2003, 2004, and they did give us some funding for a lot of stuff, right? And even our funding formula back in the day was called CRF, Community Reinvestment Fund, and they rejigged it just to accommodate the unincorporated areas that we assumed. So they did a major shuffle in the structure of their funding formula back in the day. So I guess what I'm saying is we certainly can go make a pitch at them, but I think it's much more of a everybody problem, 444 municipality problem, hitting it in an entirely different way, because just to go and make a pitch for us for a couple of unincorporated, no offense to anybody, but a couple unincorporated territories in West Nipissing versus that, they're policy driven, and they're going to be looking at how they can assist going forward. So we can look at that, and certainly we can do an assessment of our unincorporated areas and the work we need, but 25 years in, it's tough to make that sailing for them, so.
What I like is if we can get lean and show the government that we've done our due diligence and we've looked at everything possible that we can do, it might just help our case.
Well, I'd love to get lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thanks for those comments. Councillor Larrabee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do remember when in those years when we were amalgamated, and there was the province appointed a mediator between, I think it's by the name of Morley Dater.
Yeah.
And he specifically said that the unincorporated township will not lose what they have. Get better, but not lose what they have. So this would be something to bring back to the government and say, listen, you told us that we'd keep the same services. So that could help in our situation.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments from those in the room or online? Not seeing any. So appreciate the comments, and I think good comments made. I think the data piece is important, because if we want to, it's always good to have that information when you're going to different levels of government for supports or for partnerships. So good to see that we'll be working on that. And then the software issue is something that I'm sure will be if there is anything proposed, it'll be a budget issue likely for next year if we want to integrate something new. So we'll keep an eye on those and appreciate the information shared by staff. Just reminded that we do have this coming back up later during our new business piece for approval of the asset management plan for 2025. So thank you for that. And if there's not any other questions, we can move on to our next agenda item under general government. 5.1.2 is proposed amendments to the procedure bylaw. And this was a request that was generated from Madam Mayor. So I will turn the floor over to her. We have the information within our package, but just to lead that discussion, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much. So there's a memo there. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. There is a memo there that I've prepared, and the suggestions I'm making came out of some of our council training sessions and some information, just feedback from councillors on how we could make the process more fulsome for council. The first item identified is activity reports. So through our committee of the whole, we have reports from various departments and items under various departments brought to us. And I would propose that we have just brief updates every month on activities, what's going on. So we have our capital projects that we've approved, where those projects are, whether they've been awarded, whether they're in progress, estimated end dates for those projects. It could be a report from community service of events that are planned for the coming month. Because a lot of times, we find out that there's something cool going on at the complex like everybody else, which is, through Facebook or something like that. So it'd be nice to have that information presented to council in advance. So that was the first item recommended. The second item is the format of the agendas, and I'd like to propose that we include a section that would list the action items from previous meetings. So oftentimes, council is providing direction to staff on various items, and this provides both an opportunity for us to keep up with what's going on and where those items are in progress, but it also allows us to understand the time that staff is spending on things. So when we are making requests of staff, we have a little bit of an idea about what's already on the table. And can try to be respectful of our requests, given everything takes time or money, and what that burden on staff will be. So I think it really is a tool that will work to serve both staff and council very well in the future. And the third item is just amending the period for notice of motion, and only because a notice of motion as it's written is generally read. I don't know that there's a lot of preparation that's required for that, so I would just suggest that maybe it doesn't need to be as long as it is outlined in the procedural bylaw as it is. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that overview, Madam Mayor. I'll open the floor for any questions or comments from those councillors around the table or online. Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you. I guess my first question would be to staff is how much of additional task would that be for our staff to prepare all these reports? I mean, I think it's a good idea for some of the stuff for us to get some information, especially some action items. Personally, I think every meeting is, or, to provide us an update every meeting is more than what I would anticipate. I would think maybe quarterly or every, third or something to that effect. But I guess my first question would be how much of a workload would that add to our staff, and if the reports are available or whatnot?
On the face of it, it's hard for me to say. I could tell you theoretically that we don't have, and I work for or I volunteer elsewhere. We don't have necessarily all of the support staff that other organizations do. And so I'd be not leery about what is being requested. It's all very logical. It's just I'd like to maybe ask for council's indulgence to direct staff to provide a report back on this request to see how it would be. And so at the next meeting, I can come back and weigh a little bit. I could tell you just historically that when we had too many council meetings or whatever, or too many reports that way, we found that we were reporting more than doing. And so we're chasing our tails trying to report, though I get the need for having the info. So, you know, I don't want to speak in absolutes with respect to it not being a good idea. It's a good idea. So the idea is to try and find a framework that satisfies the spirit of the request while not bogging down staff any more than they have. So, you know, format of agendas, you know, we can put them in correspondence on the agenda. You know, I think if we're going to be taking a lot of time just reporting on this is what I did during my summer vacation versus this is what we need to get done moving forward, I think we want to move forward on some stuff, and we're already, you know, not accused, but you know, there's already a feeling that we're not getting as much done as we should. So my recommendation, if you'll indulge me, is that I bring it back by the next meeting with a report, but with also maybe what the report could look like and some strategies for it to meet the needs of these three issues. And to be honest with you, I hate that term. To be frank with you, I guess, the notice of motion one, what is it now, Melanie?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Like, if you come in between the time the package is prepared and there's a notice of motion, that notice of motion is read at that meeting, but dealt with at the meeting after, if that's not
I believe that's correct.
That's my issue. So a notice of motion that comes in 3 days prior to the, whatever, it's still a notice of motion. It wouldn't be read as a motion anyway. It would be read as a notice of motion, and then notices of motion would be dealt with at the meeting after. Am I not?
That's correct.
Am I clear on that? And it's a question, not a statement. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Yes.
This is a very good document. I just got to find it.
Page 20, Mel.
Thanks, Elisa.
And to put, you know, some notices of motion are minor, but I have been in my not too distant past the recipient of notices of motion in the past term, which were not quite that innocuous, if I may say. They were quite toxic, actually. And so I think other councillors would want to ensure that they had the time to properly digest it. I know the councillors from last term saw some notices of motion where people were pushing buttons a little bit. And so I think that there's a time there in governance for a reason.
It's 7 days. It's in
7 days?
7 days.
Yeah. But if a notice of motion is provided within 7 days, what happens?
It can be put on the agenda.
As a notice of motion or as a motion?
Notice of motion may be delivered to the clerk no later than noon, 1 week in advance, which the agenda is prepared in order to be included on the final agenda in order to be introduced or read during the notice of motion section of the agenda.
Then the 3 days doesn't, as the mayor is indicating, then the 3 days doesn't matter. As long as council has that period where after the notice of motion is written, let's say it's read today, then at the next meeting, you'll be dealing with it, just so that you have that opportunity to prepare. There's no rush to get things right. And so in my opinion, there'd be more of a need to ensure that council is fully prepared and not having somebody bringing something in last minute on you. Heaven forbid, not this council.
Thank you for the question and for the clarification. Councillor Ferrand, did you have your hand up? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I didn't. I thought I might have saw your hand go.
No, I just wanted to say that I'm in favor of this, especially the second point because I feel that often we, as a counselor anyway, lose a bit of the big picture because at every meeting we direct staff to come back to us with something in particular, and then it kind of like, for me, it gets forgotten a little bit, and I don't know how many times I've had to go back to past meetings and view past meetings. Oh, what did we decide to do with this? And I think it would just help for us to see this snapshot at every meeting. And I don't think it would involve that much work other than putting it in a chart. And if, for example, the AMPs, we directed staff to come back to us with something, with a proposed bylaw, which they did, but it would have been nice to know when they expected to come back with that. So that also we may also at times want to change priorities. If we see that something is coming back in 6 months' time and something else in 3 months' time, we might think, well, maybe we'd like to direct staff to put more priority on one thing and maybe less on another. So that's why I fully support this. I think it would help us a lot. That's all I have to say, really. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
As I said, in item 2, I could see the clerk's department with the software that they have perhaps doing that. The only hesitation that I have, council, is just to want to make sure before agreeing to, tighten up, and I think that was the basis for Councillor St. Louis' questions. Before I overpromise and underdeliver, I just want to make sure that we can respond to you accordingly.
Thanks for the comments, Councillor Fenner, for the comments as well, Mr. CEO. Any other comments around this issue, questions and thoughts? I think if I think it's probably fair to maybe suggest taking a bit of time just to make sure that we, like the CEO mentioned, requests come in, but it's always good to take time to properly plan and see what we can do and what those timeframes will look like. It was suggested that possibly giving time till the next meeting for staff to go back and come back with some of the time, issues that this may cause or not cause, or how it might impact day-to-day operations. So I'd suggest, and I just want to make sure the time, as we're talking about it, we have enough time, but is April 15th enough time at the next meeting to?
Well, I think it's a general government issue, so I think it would be the first meeting in May. But,
okay.
But I mean, April 15th, we have some set issues that are coming for that already. So we do pre-plan. The issue is sharing the pre-planning with council. So it's a matter of tweaking that, but we do have our plans on what goes on those agendas. My preference, if council will indulge me, and there you have your first verbal, is the first meeting in May. We'll have a report to be adopted.
Okay, so again, we're not deciding right now. We're just giving some direction for future activities, but those are on the table online. Are you okay with having this be brought back to us the first meeting in May with some time, more information, and the opportunity then to decide on how we'd like to proceed? Seeing nodding around the table, so we'll move ahead with that. George, was that a yes? Oh, sorry, Councillor Fenner, was another?
No, it's a yes.
Okay, perfect.
As a comment for a test run, all right, May, first meeting of May, we'll get that back. That's under that section. What is it, after correspondence? There you go.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I appreciate that. Appreciate the discussion. We'll revisit that in our first meeting in May. The next item that we have is under general government is item 5.1.3, which is the council compensation review. And again, as we're all aware, we received some information at a previous meeting. There was some comments, and I'm not sure if we're going to get into those specifics, but there was some comments made about looking at things like health coverage, different items like that. So I'm not sure if we're going to get into that discussion this evening, but again, through our CEO, if I can turn it to.
Yes, I wasn't at that meeting. And I know our Director of Corporate Services has done a lot of research.
Okay, excellent. So I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Craddock.
Yes, thank you. So I did reach out and check on some benefits information. So just when you look at the market survey data from the other comparators, just so you kind of understand the language on things, extended health actually generally is where your drug coverage sits. So extended health can mean a lot of things, but that's where drug coverage sits. It may also in some situations mean paramedical, which is, the massage, chiropractor and things like that. But generally health or extended health is actually your drug coverage. Dental speaks for itself. AD&D is insurance, so accident and disability, and then life insurance kind of speaks for itself. So I reached out to our provider right now, and this is a new group at council. So our insurance for health, dental, those services is actually not insured. It's like a self-funded. So we actually pay direct cost. We made that transition, it's got to be more than 10 years ago, and had such a significant cost savings. We actually haven't worked our way back up to what it was costing us before we did the rollover. So we pay direct costs for health and dental. We still have obviously insured parts for life and things like that. So what we do with is they provide sort of what a phantom rate is what they call it. So they say, taking a look at what the costs are, where you likely fall, they give us kind of an estimate of what it might cost per counselor sort of for the year. And I've got numbers that sort of include if you're going to have just single coverage or if you're going to have family. So if we're looking at family coverage, you're looking at around sort of just shy of $300 a month is kind of the average cost. So about $3,200 a year for if councils per counselor, if you're going to look at family coverage. Single coverage is substantially less. It's only about $120 a month. So, you're just over that, just shy of the $1,500 for a year. So a little less than half that for single coverage. And that mirrors what our non-union coverage is. So it is prescription drugs, dental claims, small health things like special vaccinations and hospital stays and that kind of stuff. Our non-union folks don't have any of that paramedical, so it's not going to get you massage or chiropractor or any of that sort of stuff covered in it. Then when I asked them about insurance, so life insurance and those types of things, and then that's where it got a little bit tricky actually. So because counselors aren't sort of active employees, right? So it sort of changes how when you're a director of an organization versus an active employee, you don't fit under sort of our group. So they have to sort of pool you on your own. And when they pool you on your own, then they start looking at the demographics of this small group, which means it's going to be able to swing a lot from year to year. And it's not a really easy thing to do. And he did say, conversely, they could go out and actually, look at every single individual and what the premiums are on every single individual. And I didn't ask him to actually quote on all that because he said it wasn't typically done. And so before I had him chasing around to get these numbers that are going to be really hard to do, and you may have to go through medical and all that sort of stuff because you're not actively employed. I didn't go have him quote that until I kind of had a feeling on whether council really wanted to pursue the life insurance part of things. And then things like LTD, you don't see it on anyone else's because again, you're not active employee, so you're not eligible for LTD. From a swing point of view, look at again, this is a fabulous group. You've got a median age right now of under 53 years, and we used to talk about the fact that we had someone from every decade, and that was kind of fun for a little while. But on that rate, so if I picked one of our young folks, I won't mention who our young folks are, but if one of our young folks, wasn't here and was replaced by someone who was at the retirement age, it could make a 20% swing in what your life insurance costs are. So it's because you're such a small group and the demographics can swing really fast on it. So, and then life insurance typically terminates at 70 years old. We don't usually find carriers that will cover past 70 years old. So, if council, is interested in pursuing the life insurance more, I would go back to them with some more specifics on it. It just seemed that like I said, it wasn't usually a thing, and it was going to be significantly more than our current life insurance costs for regular employees are. But the health and dental, like I said, if council's looking at family coverage, it's probably in the $3,200 a year range per member. If council's looking at the single coverage, then it's more at the $1,400 a year in coverage. And then let's say the rest of the compensation package is the same as you had from last council meeting.
Okay, I'll open the floor. Thank you for that information. I'll open the floor to questions. Councillor Larrabee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm still of the same opinion as I was prior to getting this information. And I think if a person could do it on a one-on-one, I would go with like I said, the 60%. And if I decide, I could take some of that money and do we all have to be as a group to get into those insurance, or if I decide I don't need it, is this because there's some that has got families, some don't have families.
Well, for life insurance, it would be a group because it's anti-selective. So if you were to take life insurance as an idea, the idea of certain people wouldn't want some and certain people do. Insurance companies kind of frown on that, right? It's called anti-selective. With respect to the other aspects, like you say, it's a phantom rate because it's really ASO driven, right?
Correct. So again, if council decided that they wanted to support benefits for council, and this is the conversation we've had with prior councils, is that they want to provide benefits for council, perhaps council would pay for it, in which case it doesn't matter, or if you say, nope, council wants to go with benefits and they want the municipality as part of your compensation package, then if you choose never to put anything through on the plan, it saves the municipality, but it doesn't really change what the overall structure is. I'm still going to assume that, that there's an assumption as far as what benefits would cost for the year. But obviously some people would use it more or less, but because it's not insured, it is all based on usage. So it is phantom rates. Yeah.
So again, like I said, I'm still in favor of not for the low end and not for the high end. We go in the middle, and this is something also might be some councillors that are not in favor. Now, is there a choice that the councillor get this this amount? Just I don't know if because I heard some comments that some councillors aren't. They knew what they were getting into prior to so they're not in favor of a raise. So kind of person say, well, okay, I won't take it.
In the past, we actually had an inquiry about a member of council who didn't want to get paid at all. And the problem is that we have policies and such that says this is what we're going to do. And so the councillor that didn't want to get paid, I mean, that's happened in our neighboring cities where the councillor themselves gets paid and then they just donate all their money to somewhere else. But yeah, we can't really have, you've got this rate and you've got that rate and someone else doesn't get paid at all. And there is generally a policy on compensation and it's a policy on compensation.
For everyone. Okay. So again, I'm still at the 60% percentile. Thank you.
Thanks for those comments. Around the table, any other questions, comments? Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of my opinion, I would rather not have the the benefits package and so on and so forth. I think most of us, I understand that some people don't, but a lot of people do. If the possibility is there for an individual to get it on their own, then so be it. More power to them. But hopefully we don't end up in a position where we are forced to take something that we don't want, right? If the possibility is there for individuals to take it, then fine. And to add to what Conseiller Larrabee said, I'm of the opposite mindset. I am one that knew what I was getting into when I joined 2 years ago. So if we are going to take something, I'm at the lower end, but that's my personal opinion.
Thank you for those comments. Councilor Evo?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just noticing a couple things. I'm like Councilor St. Louis mentioned about the benefits. I'm not too interested in that. It would probably be at the 50th percentile for me as well, just off the top of my head. But just something that I noticed last time I brought it up as well was like it shows the deputy mayor as right now. I guess we just have deputy mayor as the same as council. So then this shows deputy mayor would be at about 29.5. And then something else I noticed in the benefits, no other town here has a car allowance for one member at next to $7,000. So then if you add that to the 50th percentile, all of a sudden that's like at 52,000. Then you jump, now you're at above the 75th percentile for one position, right? So you'd have council at 50th percentile, but you'd have the mayor at 75th, 80th percentile, if you look at it that way, because you're getting that extra compensation. It's just something that I wanted to bring up, just because like when you look at everything, if we want to kind of be equal around the board for percentiles, I think we kind of have to take that into account, because it is a benefit that other towns don't get. So I don't know how that wasn't taken into account with the percentiles. Right. I don't know if I explained that well.
Yeah, I think you did. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but way back in the day when this was originally set up, the car allowance was something that was separate. I would assume that it's based on some of the duties of the mayor and what they have to do to fulfill their roles, to travel around the municipality. I'm sure that some consideration was given with the geography as well, and traveling out to the, into some of the smaller communities that make up the municipality. And I'll turn over to our CEO in 1 second. I think that the car allowance is kind of a separate amount on its own. And I don't think it's really, it wouldn't be accurate to include it within the salary portion, because it's something that is on its own separate on the side, but I'll turn it over to.
No, you hit the nail on the head. In 1999, the original council developed this policy, and they developed the fact that the mayor, being elected at large, then is represented at large and has a constituency at large. And so that would have been the rationale back in the day for that. Whether there's a discussion about compensation for car allowance for others, to a lesser degree, that's entirely a council consultation or discussion as well. It's not introduced here. And then, you'll recall as well where the government took away the 2/3, 1/3, and part of that was to subsidize your expenses back in the day, right? You had the 1/3 of your remuneration, which was tax-free, and then they removed that. And so I don't know that we did a salary increase at that point. So not to get into the fray, but, this council and subsequent councils to that decision took a take-home hit because they were now taxed at the full 100% and not at 2/3 in the past. So that 1/3 back in the day was for traveling around and whatever expenses that you had locally. So just Max, the 2,000-year-old mouse here, thought I could share that.
Appreciate the background, the historical information. Again, I'll look around the table. I know we've had a couple of councilors share their thoughts on where they're at in terms of benefits, life insurance, the amounts that were proposed within the compensation information that we received. Just looking to see if there's any more comments around the table. Councilor Gagné.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I haven't changed my position. I think a 60 percentiles, especially that I wasn't aware that past council had a portion of their salaries tax-free, which has been removed by the government. So I know past council have probably refused to do a salary increase, but I think it's been over 12 or 10, 20 years or whatever that the council hasn't had a paid increase. So I think with the cost of living going up and all that, I would be in agreement as a conseiller Larrabee to the 60 percentile. Whether we do it now, add it to the next budget, or do it at the end of our term, I don't really care when, but I think it's overdue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go Councillor Nicol and then Councillor Fedin.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I also have the same opinion as last meeting. I would like to see it take effect the next term if possible. And if we do vote on it, I would be at the 50th percentile. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Fedin.
Thank you, Councillor O'Toole. I've had a lot of time to think about this since we last discussed it, and on the face of it, I do agree that our salary levels seem to be on the low side compared to other municipalities, and I do agree with some of the other arguments that were made in favor of an increase at the last meeting. However, I also feel that we signed up for this for a term ending in October 2026 at the stated salary, and I don't feel that now is the right time to make this decision. I know some of you will say that there's no point in kicking the can down the road, but ultimately, though, we work for the taxpayer, and it is for the taxpayer to decide. And in my opinion, the best way to resolve this is to stick with our current salaries for the next 18 months. And those who run for office, whether some of us or anyone else, at the next election, can make their views known as part of their platform. So the decision can then be made at the first meeting after the election, and each council member elected will have a mandate and presumably vote on the question as he or she indicated during the campaign. I think it would be the most democratic way to do this, the most transparent, and that's all I have to say on the matter.
There's only been a couple who haven't shared their thoughts, and we'll hear from one of them right now with Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Councillor Bristol. I'm in the same opinion as Councillor Nichols and Councillor Farag. When I came in, I knew what I was getting into. I was on the planning board for 16, 18 years. We never had 1 cent. It would have been nice to have at least the mileage, but we had nothing. And it was okay because that's why I joined a committee. When I came here, honestly, I didn't even know how much we made. So I'm not even in favor of the 50th percentile because it gives us a raise of 27%. Like, who gets that? That's my opinion.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'm not sure if Madam Mayor wants to share any thoughts on this, or since there's only yourself and myself who haven't shared yet.
No, I've just been listening. You know, because there are a lot of different points of view. I think there's always a difficulty in voting yourself a raise, but that is the system that we work in. And I understand where Councillor Ferran is coming from, but then we're just leaving the next council in the same difficult position that we're in. in that, at some point, the discussion needs to be had and the vote needs to be taken. So, I'm not sure I have a position as of yet as to where it should be. I do think that the information we've received shows that we aren't comparing well to our brother and sister municipalities as far as being on track with others. As to whether it if it were to be the decision to have it start next term, I'm comfortable making that decision to have for us to make the decision to have the pay change at the next after the next election, and not leaving council, a new council in the position to have this debate all over again. By that time, this data will be 2 years old, and therefore will likely need to be reassessed against comparators all over again to see where it lands and whether the data is still good. So, we have invested the time in order to do the examination of this issue. And I think that given that this council should make a decision one way or the other, whether we choose to accept it or not accept it, I don't feel comfortable with kicking it down the road and leaving it to the next council, because it's going to be the same discussion. It doesn't matter who has it, which 9 people are sitting around the table. It will always garner some criticism from some people, and then other people that I've spoken to in the community will say, we see the amount of work that does go in, and that elected officials, put in a lot of work for the little amount of money. So, it all depends on how you value the services that we give to our residents, and how we value our own time as well. So, I'm, like I say, I've just been kind of listening and processing the comments of other councillors, but however it turns out, I don't think we should just leave it to the next council. I think that if it's going to be done, whether we decide to do it now, or whether we decide to approve a raise to begin at the start of the next term, I think that we've started the process and we should finish it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Madam Mayor. I guess there's really 2 questions here. One is timing, and when would we like to prefer to see this take effect, if there is a change that's in effect? And the second part is, what is the amount that we're looking at for that being affected? And I echo many of the comments of Madam Mayor. We did bring this forward. We did ask staff to put the work into getting the information in front of us that we have. And I am of the exact same mindset. If we say that we're not going to make a decision on this and leave it to the next council, they're going to be in the same position we're in now, where they'll be deciding what, if any, that they're going to increase their salary. And I think it's important to, everything in life is how things are framed, or how the communication goes across. And I think if we all are, I believe, looking at the data that we've received, this is helping the municipality catch up to similar size, similar responsibility municipalities. And I don't like the term a raise, because we're catching up, and we have the data here. It's not numbers that we pulled out of the sky. So there is fairness in terms of what these numbers look like. I just wanted to share that piece. But I guess we could keep going on with this discussion for the next 18 months if we don't make a decision on it. So I know we're not voting on it formally, but just in general, I'll put it out there. Our folks, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, is this something we want to decide as our council right now, or is this something that we want to push to the next council coming in? Is probably the first question. Maybe it's a second question. Maybe it's not even a question. And then the other piece is what are the numbers that we'd like to recommend? So in my mind, I think one of the approaches that we can take is, are we looking at a raise to the 50th, 60th percentile? And when are we going to have that take effect?
So you have a bunch of questions. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd suggest one at a time would be if council is, is in favor of contemplating an increase, yes or no, and then an increase now or an increase in the next term would be the second question. And then if those questions are answered in the affirmative either way, then the next question would be the 50th or 60th percentile. Okay with
So we'll start with the first. I was thinking when you were talking.
So, is council in favor of an increase, be it now or after the next term, based on this report?
So we'll do a show of hands for those around the table who's in favor of an increase regardless of time, but start with that question from our current level to the 50th or 60th percentile. 4, 5, 6, 7, 6. So that passes. So now the next question that we have, based on the information and the data that we've received from our from the group that we contracted to do this research is, and we've heard some different numbers around the table, the 50th or the 60th percentile.
I would maybe ask whether council wants the raise now or if they're actually just voting for the future council.
Okay, so we'll pretend that I have that idea here. And the question we're putting out to council is, are we looking at doing this now? Or are we looking at having this implemented for the next council when they come in at the end of 2026? So I'll put the question for now first.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 4, except you.
Thanks.
He'd have a vote on the straw. 1, 2, 3, 4. You do have a vote on the straw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so it's down.
Okay. So then the next question is, and I don't know which one we're going
Are
to do
you
first.
giving them different information on that side than I am on this side? Is this the good side?
I just wrote the questions in a different order.
Oh,
She's describing them down. Is it easier to start at 50 and see if we have, or start at the higher number?
that doesn't start it. Yeah. Try 60. If you don't get it, try 50.
Perfect. Okay, so we have the information again in front of us. The two options that have been put forward by different voices around the table is 60 or 50. So we'll start at 60 and see if we have enough support to look at that percentile. I'll ask all those in favor of the 60th percentile. I see 2. So that amount is defeated. 50th percentile is the next option that's there.
We don't have a choice.
Yes, so just a comment, I think the people who still voted no still have to vote on which percentile at this moment, right?
We did have 6
Like we can't just, or you can abstain. Right?
We had 6 hand raised for it.
So from a procedural perspective, Mr. Chair, the resolution next meeting will be to authorize a wage adjustment for council, not a raise, an adjustment to council based on the information, blah, blah. You're talking about communication, effective from the time the resolution is passed at 50%, at the 50th percentile as per the report. And that's basically what was agreed upon here at council.
Right.
Okay. That's the direction Melanie will have on the resolution.
Perfect. All right. And I appreciate the discussion and the input from council. I know it's always a difficult issue when you talk about numbers, but I appreciate the comments and how we arrived at that decision this evening. Now, I don't know if this is still sitting on the table with the information about insurance and benefits. We got information.
Well, that's true. If you want to put it to rest, you can ask the question.
So I don't know if we're going to lump those as one, or if they have to be as one.
Well, you can ask the question. I think I know that it's probably not going to be
Yeah.
accepted, but
Okay, so I'll put it through as both and we'll have a vote. Benefits and insurance as included to be covered by the municipality for members of council. All those in favor of moving forward with that? Seeing 0 hands, so that's not going to move forward. So I think we've kind of pulled everything together in a little, in our decisions, we're good to move ahead with that. So again, thank you. And we'll move on to our next item that we have on our agenda. It's 5.14. It is tax ratios. And again, I'll ask our CEO if we can go through our.
That's such a Ms. Craddock.
Yeah. Ms. Craddock, please, if you could share some or expand on the information that we've already received.
Thank you. So some of you have probably, heard my spiel several times, but I can give you the same spiel. And there's actually one change this year. So council has tax ratios, and then tax rates are driven from tax ratios. And so residential is sort of the baseline, and everything else is a ratio of the residential tax rate. West Nipissing our assessment is hugely residential. So we can do things to tax ratios for some of our other property classes that can have significant impacts on those property classes. And we typically look at multi-res and commercial, but we can look at the other ones without having a lot of impact on the residential pool, because the residential pool is so large. At the bottom of the first page, it talks range of fairness and range of flexibility. So range of fairness are set by both part pieces are set by the province. So the province sort of wants tax ratios to be within that range of fairness, in that the assessments are what drives what the province feels that the assessment is sort of what should drive. So they want things all sitting around that one, so that they're fairly consistent, and let the assessment drive the change in tax collection. And they allow municipalities this range of flexibility, which says, you can go from the bottom number up to whatever your current number is right now, which is why you see our existing ones sitting in that range of flexibility. There's a couple of things that the province has done over the years. So multi-res, the province forced the municipality down to a ratio of 2. It's quite some number of years ago. And then they put all new multi-res goes as a 1-to-1 with residential. Now, in the municipality, a lot of our multi-res are ones that we actually already have agreements on, that we write them down. I shouldn't say a lot of them. Our large assessment multi-res are ones that we have agreements with, because they are geared to income housing and things like that we have agreements on, that we write them down to the residential level already. What is new this year is the aggregate extraction value in there. So the province, towards the end of 2024, came out. They'd had some challenges in Southern Ontario regarding gravel pits, and they had won some battles on gravel pits. The municipalities won some battles on gravel pits, and so the MPAC came in with an entirely new assessment procedure on gravel pits, and they rolled it in 2024. And so, but what they did in 2024 is they gave, and they have continued to give gravel pits a break on the education tax portion. And so what they did when they've created a new class for 2025 going forward, and they took a look at all their assessment and what tax we would have collected on our assessment at our industrial vacant land rate, and then they rolled it in and said, okay, we're going to create a new rate, and we've got this new assessment, and the 1.19 is sort of what means that the municipality collects the exact same amount of tax as they were collecting before they brought in the new process. So that's kind of their equalizer, and so that sits as our kind of high level for range of flexibility. Now, if council moves any of these down, and I'm going to use multi-res again as I'm going to pick on. So multi-res has got a range of flexibility, the high of 1.96 as the ratio. If we move it down from there, but we're still above the 1-to-1 that they show as the range of fairness, we can't go back up. So when we're dropping them down, if we're outside of the range of fairness, that now becomes our new top end, and we can't go back up. So when we make these changes, we're making these changes sort of going forward. So then I gave you some scenarios, and like I said, we typically look at multi-residential and commercial rates, and we do just sort of a couple scenarios, dropping them by 1%, dropping them by 2%. It can be other numbers. I'm just giving you sort of a scenario of what we look like. So just so you can see what is happening here. If we reduce commercial by 1%, so the commercial ratio by 1%, on $100,000 worth of assessment, a commercial property is going to save $20. On that same $100,000 of residential assessment, it's only going to cost them $1.13 more. So this is where I said, you know, because our assessment base is so heavily residential, you can do things to commercial and multi-res without having a huge effect on the residential impact. And then the same thing happens with 2%. And then if we look at multi-res, and it's the same, you know, we're dropping multi-res ratio by 1%. The multi-res on $100,000 worth of assessment is saving $22, and it's going to cost $1.20 more for the on $100,000 for the residential assessment. And so, like I said, there's we put these two together, and we put the same combination. If you drop both multi-res and commercial by 1%, and so I put these out as sort of our usual scenarios that we look at. Certainly, if there are other scenarios that council wanted to explore or look at, I could take those back and bring those back to you at a later time.
Thank you for, as I mentioned earlier, data is always important. Thank you for all that data that you share here with us. I'll open the floor for questions. And Councilor Lyon.
Can I get the definition of multi-res?
Question.
More than 6 units.
More than 6 units? And do we know how many more than 6 units we have?
I'll see if I have that for you right now. Otherwise, I can find it for you. And
I'm just, do we have lots or not that many?
not that many. Not that many. No.
Is the commercial and the industrial the same thing, or is it different?
No, they're different.
Okay.
And so we only have a very few number of industrial properties. But you know, think about, you know, large plants and those kind of things, whereas the commercial is everything you see up and down Front Street and down, you know, the downtown core.
Okay. And I know we've said it before. Can I just get a refresh? What do we have as industrial right now?
As far as number of properties or assessment for properties?
Assessment, yeah.
I'll see if I have it here. Oh, no, I just got ratios.
I know, I think we only have like 2 or 3 that are industrial.
Oh yeah, there's not a large number of that. We have some industrial vacant land, but not a large that are actually industrial active. I can find those for you. I don't have them right here with me.
You know the number, like 2, 3, or no? Okay, that's good. Yeah, can I'd just like that.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem. Councilor Pellerin.
Thank you, Councilor Russell. Just to follow up the multi-res, would that be all rentals or privately owned?
So they would be rentals then?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and my other question, CPR falls under which category?
There's 2 different things that happen with CPR. So some of their property sits as industrial. However, some of their property is actually taxed differently. There's a different piece of legislation for rail lines. And so it's based on the kilometers of rail lines. Same thing happens with our utilities. Some of our utilities, so the GSU or hydro, some of them are taxed at actually residential or industrial, and some of them are taxed based on transmission lines that are in the area. So they've got 2 different ways of assessing those types of properties in our community.
Because I'm just thinking like, we're talking about bringing the water, the CPR to Vernon, and what they think about this and how much the taxes they pay or whatever. That's all.
Thank you for those comments. Councilor Pellerin, I see Madam Mayor had her hand up. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. We have this discussion every year. We talk about it for about 20 minutes and then we decide to keep the status quo, is I think how I remember the discussions mostly going in the past. And I guess just kind of not for today's discussion, because I'm pretty happy to leave the program the way it is and it's worked for us in the past. But I do have concerns going forward with the push from the province to allow up to 3 residential units on our residential properties and how that impacts tax equity. And I know that that's probably, maybe it's a whole different conversation. Maybe somebody who's chairing should tell me I'm off topic. But you know, when you look at, you know, what the difference between, you know, serving 4 residents versus 12 residents or something like that on a single property. And you will say it's captured in assessment, but I don't think that the increased use on municipal services is actually captured in the assessment alone, because the increased assessment wouldn't actually be double or triple the value, where we are providing double or triple the services, we have double or triple the cars on the road. So it's just an interesting conversation as we increase density in our, especially in our urban settlement areas, you know, how you adjust for tax equity in that. Thank you.
Comments?
Well, you're right. Unfortunately, it's really not part of the ratio issue because it's under 7. But, and you are also right, though the system is not perfect. The system of market value assessment is the system that we go with. And it really isn't well received in a disparate community like ours. When you start equating services with taxes paid, you can start making arguments with respect to the outlying areas not getting anything for their taxes versus the, you know, whatever. Those are all often emotional arguments made by the individual. But yeah, the system that we have right now, the legislation that we use is the legislation that we're allowed to. And we would hope that somebody who has 3 units and 3 brand new units would be taxed quite a bit more heavily than the neighbor that has 1 unit, but that's just theoretical.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. CEO. Any other? Oh, Councillor Larrabee.
Thank you. My question would be, if we were to say 1-to-1 on the ratio for multi-res and also 1-to-1 for commercial, what would it bring both of them together for our tax base, the residential? You said $1 for
Reducing by 1% or bringing them right to a 1-to-1 ratio?
bringing them 1-to-1. Because like I said, I remember having these discussions way back every year. So if we bring them 1-to-1 all straight around, then we don't have no more discussion of that.
We never had those discussions to that extreme, because I can tell you on the average household, it would be in the hundreds. There would be a lot of money involved as a residential hit to do that. What we've done in the past to show the order of magnitude is why the reports were staged that way, is that, you know, to help your commercial on 100,000 of assessment, you'll raise $1 for every residential property and they'll save 20. And those are kind of, you know, nice gestures. But if you wanted to actually make that parity, there would be quite
Would be quite a hit.
It'd be,
Yeah.
we've never done the analysis, but be happy to bring it back to you. I don't think it'd happen in this budget year though, Councillor Larrabee. But we can certainly bring you the report for the fun of it.
Yeah. So that would be a discussion that we would be ended.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Good, yeah. In an election year, have fun.
Okay. Other comments, questions on the table? Not seeing any, I'm not seeing any online. So this is brought, for us, this will come back to us, or is this just information?
If there's no change, then there'll be a resolution sort of approving the tax ratios again, and then the tax rates can be set as well. If there was change, then, you know, it's the same, we bring back the 2 resolutions to matchups.
Okay, so they'll be coming at a future meeting. Okay, so it appears like everybody's okay with the rates as they are, no changes.
Yeah.
And we'll have the fun report in terms of getting the change to the commercial. Yes, okay, so we have that direction. That's perfect, great. We're at 7:57. Maybe take a short break. We don't have a lot left, but just we have a closed session this evening as well. So look for a mover and a seconder. Taking a 10-minute break. Councillor Gagne, Councillor Pellerin. And all those in favor?
Moved by Councillor
sorry.
Gagne, seconded by Councillor Pellerin. At approximately 7:57 PM, a motion was tabled to take a 10-minute break.
All those in favor? That's good. We'll see you all in about 10 minutes.
Thank you.
We're back.
Friends.
All right.
You might have been waiting for us to come back.
Okay, we are going back to complete our committee of the whole agenda. We have two of our three members online. We'll get going and hopefully Councillor Fennell will join us shortly. Community of the whole, we have a couple more items there. 5.1.5, welcome back everyone online. Update on the riverfront lot additions. And again, going through our CEO, I'll ask Madame Ducharme to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make this quick. The last time we discussed it, I had, I think, 7 offers to purchase lot additions. When I communicated the square footage, or I guess it was square meter area to the residents, only one took up the offer. I did receive today a counter offer, yesterday actually, from one resident who wishes to ask council if they would accept a counter offer of $13,000, which is approximately $5,000 lower than the calculated price based on the appraisal that was provided by Appraisals North. So I'm just seeking direction on the counter offer and providing council with the update on where we're at on these.
Okay, so the information was provided to everybody in your packages online, so you have copies of those. So I guess what's before us right now for the request is one counter offer at $13,000.
Which would, if accepted, would I would have to go back to all the other residents who declined the purchase based on the price.
So then before us, the request to either accept or decline the $13,000 counter offer, and then as our clerk mentioned, if we do accept it, we will have to go back to others with this new revised price to offer it to them amount. I see there's a comment from Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question is, this property that's for, is estimated $5,000 more than what he's offering.
It's through you, Mr. Chair. It's a lot addition. It's a lot addition of approximately 60 feet by 50 feet at the rear of the property from the central portion of the Demers property that the municipality owns.
And
So
we had it estimated?
We had an AACI appraisal provided by Appraisals North. And in that appraisal, there was a calculation of the lot addition price as well, based on a square meter amount. So that would have placed those lot additions in the $18,000 range based on a 60 by 50 foot lot addition. At about 18, he is countering at 13, which is, in my memo, I had indicated in 2024, we had a one of request, and that was the opinion of value that was given on that one of request. Subsequently, we obtained a more fulsome appraisal from an appraiser, which indicated that the property is worth maybe a little bit more.
I would, since I'm elected to watch the purse of the taxpayers, I would say that we stick with what do we need to sell? And let's keep it until we reach the price that's appraised.
Okay, thanks for those comments, Councillor Irby. Others around the table? Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Councillor Stoll. Yeah, I agree. This, we just sold a way smaller lot addition in Burner for 14,000, and the people didn't say anything. They paid all the costs. And this piece is way bigger, and to me, it should be worth more. So I think they're getting a deal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments around the table? Online, Councillor Ghani?
Yeah, just one question. All the lots are the same size, am I correct? Or?
Yeah, give or take a few inches.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that. Online, any comments, questions? Not seeing any. So the two comments we've seen so far is to not accept the lowered price or the counter offer. Is that the general direction from council at this time? Okay. Sorry, I just want to double check, Madam Mayor, is that a vote in favor of
That was a
not-
yes. I think we stick with the price. I'm sorry. I thought you were kind of looking for a show of hands. Thank you.
We're often on the same wavelength with those speed votes when it comes up to raising hands. Okay, so it looks like we'll not move forward with the counter offer, and I'm sure that information will be relayed back to the individual.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that, everyone. Last item on the agenda, and it is an update on the West Nipissing power generation, and I am going to assume that our CEO will provide that update for us.
Yes. So short story, just to inform council, you're seeing a lot of nice water at the falls, and you're saying, my, there's a lot of water, and there's been a lot of water for the last month and a half, 2 months. That's actually hasn't been good news. We have not been able to produce power for the last approximately 45 days because of a transformer malfunction with OPG or hydro, with the hydro lines. And so it's quite a technical issue, and they are working on getting it installed probably shortly, I imagine within the next few weeks. We are looking at business interruption insurance that we do have with respect to the some of the lost money. But just to let you know that I don't know if there's much more to add than that, but that West Nipissing or power generation has been facing some issues for the last couple of months. And in an order of magnitude that we're hoping that we can recapture a good portion, but we're looking at around $500,000 if we didn't have the ability to recapture it right now. So on about $5.5 to $6 million gross. So we're looking at recapturing that, but that's just basically to provide you a bit of an update as to what's going on operationally with some of our companies or departments. I don't know. If there's anything more than that, we just thought you should be aware of it.
I appreciate the information. I'll open the floor. Councillor Larrabee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question would be, it's not a technical issue that our company has. It's OPG.
Right.
Itself. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put a lot of money.
Our systems are all working. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Pellerin and then Councillor Feta.
Sorry for Mr. Barbeau, you were saying the insurance is OPG's in it. Like, are we breaking even with this or? No?
Unfortunately, Hydro One, as you would imagine, is very good in their agreements with our HCI agreements on protecting themselves on issues that are out of their control as well, such as these types of rundowns. So we did pursue with OPG and Hydro any means, and there's no way there. So then we're pursuing our own insurers at this point.
Oh, yeah, we have insurance for this?
We have business interruption insurance, yes.
Which would cover?
It kicks in after 45 days, so there's still going to be a loss. So yeah, we're gonna be declaring less money this year. So though we hope for sun for enjoyment, I often hope for rain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that question. Councillor Feta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is the only avenue for recovery then, is I understand, is with insurance, and is that fairly certain that we will be able to recover after the 45 days? And what is the loss, you said, for those 45 days?
We're still assessing right now, so I don't have, I'd say the order of magnitude on the loss could be around 400,000, but I'm still looking at that. As for the probability of recovering with our business interruption insurance, I'm quite confident that we will be able to recover, if not all, because there was that lapse of time that we're not able to file. So So we will be taking a hit this year, and hopefully, it really depends because seasons are not consistent. So, there's a lot of variables. So we'll know month to month, obviously, what we didn't get in February, March. But we could have a phenomenal year anyway if the weather cooperates. So there's a variety of different factors that come into play.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, because this is actually power gen business, whether once you have the more financial information, whether a meeting of the power gen board, and I understand it's the same of it is us, but whether this will be dealt at the board level for West Nipissing Power Gen as well. Thank you.
It can. It's the same directors. We just wanted to expedite informing you as soon as possible. So, but certainly, if there are other issues with power gen, perhaps we, to a side point, might be a good idea to have a meeting as well and just provide an operational update on other matters as well. We are looking at budgets with power gen right now too, and adjusting expenditures accordingly as well. So we'll be bringing that forward.
Councilor Peller?
Thank you, Councilor Ernesto. Just out of curiosity, is there any hydro that comes out of the plant being used in town?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, yes and no. Okay. Yeah, technically, it could get to a transformer and come back here into town. So how the hydro, it's a commodity, right? So where it goes. But our one customer is Hydro One. And so we're called, under law, what's called an embedded generator. So we have one customer. Well, how the Hydro One then distributes it and gets their portion, because the hydro was produced here, makes more sense for them to divert that hydro to some Greater Sudbury Utilities, who then supplies the wires here. All of that is like voodoo magic going north and then where it comes back. But our check comes from hydro.
So it doesn't affect any business or?
No.
No. Thank you.
Councilor Larrabee, thanks for them.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I know it's a question for budget time, but we had discussed at one point, and I don't know if it happened because I wasn't at the seat. The dividend from the hydro would be dispersed amongst the whole municipality, because at one time only it was water users that were getting the money coming from it. Now, is that still the way the municipality proceeds, or is it in general?
Well, I think the reverse is more in general. It was to all of the municipality, and then there was a portion of time where the more significant challenge to the resources of this corporation were sewer and water, and so to help buffer that, we ended up taking part of the dividends and moving it. We have been decreasing the dependency. I don't know if we're fully.
We removed it several years ago.
Has it been removed?
Yeah.
So it's now all in general.
All in general.
So that was a temporary issue to subsidize and assist sewer and water.
Okay,
Which
thank you.
needed.
Thank you for the question and response. Any other questions around the update on power generation? Not seeing any around the table. I'm sure this will come back as we get more information. We'll refer it down the road and possibly be a meeting of the work for power gen to discuss. All right, thank you for that. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing me speak, so I'll get a little break here, and I'm going to turn the next item over to our chair of Water and Sewer, the Water and Sewer Committee, Sewer and Water Committee, Councilor Pellerin.
Thank you, Councilor Resto. I guess I'll pass it on to Ms. Craddock.
Are you tired of hearing me speak yet?
Oh, no.
So Councilor Pellerin had asked for an update on capital projects over several years, what had been carried over, what had been spent and in the updates. And I think we talked also previously that, we'll get the water and sewer quarterly reports, including the capital quarterly reports going forward with our regular municipal ones. So this is the last few years, and they are set in different templates, and I thought about blending them all into one, but this is actually how they were produced at budget, which means it's how I track them during the year. And so I thought it might also be helpful, when you're looking back at your budgets, to keep it in the same format, which is why you see things in a little bit of a different way. But we start with the 2023 capital project. You can see that in 2023, we had some 2022 ones that were committed and carrying over. And then you see sort of expenses that happened, and the ones that we sort of committed at that point, we said, no, there's amounts that are carrying over to the following year. That's the committed to 2024 column. And then that left amounts unexpended, plus and minus. Some had additional expenses and some, were under expended. Things like the sweeper truck, we eventually removed. We decided that we weren't going to go that route. We delayed it 1 year and then removed it entirely in the following year. And so that there are things like that impact what happens with what's rolling forward. Also, when you look at the committed and the unexpended on things like the water main looping, it's because we had quotes that came in that were significantly less than what we had originally budgeted for, and so the rest goes into that unexpended. Now, when amounts are not expended from the capital, they stay in reserve. So we have, and water and sewer has got a simpler structure than that, but it has reserve funds that are sitting there. And to Councillor Larrabee's point, that was what we were fixing several years ago, is that it was when they started having to do water financial plans, became a legislative requirement. And again, we looked at that point, our infrastructure was so woefully unfunded that we did some really big increases in our water and sewer rates, and took that amount from power gen in order to get the reserve transfers up in water and sewer. And then we've been able to kind of maintain that reserve transfer since that point. So the amounts stay in reserve. And as council's aware, things from reserve can be used for all kinds of projects going forward in the future. And then we look at 2023, again, you'll see that work in progress, the things that we sort of committed to carrying forward. A lot of that stuff got done then in 2024, and only a little bit was committed through to 2025. Now, there were a number of things that the 2024 to 2025 is a little bit different, because as we were in the middle of a budgeting process, the director and the manager came to me and said, we've got a problem. And the problem you see is that digester roof that came onto your 2025 budget, but because we suddenly had a $1.2 million expenditure that came much faster than we expected to, a number of other projects did not get committed and carried over. Things that hadn't been started kind of collapsed, which is why you see there's just this little group carrying over and sort of a new list of things starting. When things go from work in progress to committed, a lot of the work in progress stuff is stuff that we have contracts awarded, the work is actually started, we can't back out of, and things like that, which is why it sits at the work in progress. Council kind of can't change its mind now about those things, where some of the other projects that might not have got started carry back over into the regular project list, because council can start or stop, or the directors can advise that this is not the choice, which is why you see, this great change between 24 and 25 is because we simply had to be able to fit in that digester roof, as well as some of the big projects. So you do see this big change, but that's sort of the nutshell on what has rolled over between the few years there. And we end up with that format that we saw for 2025 in the capital projects.
Thank you. Any questions? I've got a question for you, Ms. Craddock. The project of the 224 for King and Market Tweto. It's almost at the line at the bottom.
Yep.
That's the 3 million, and then we go expenses of 404,000.
Yep.
Do you have an idea how the expenses, what is it? As the work started and it's going to be finished in 25?
It's going to be finished in 2025, yeah. And this one didn't get very started because the the project, like it was a continuous project and we had a different contractor on the section before. And so this contractor couldn't get on until the other contractor finished and got off. And so included in that 400, there is a large portion of that is, there's engineering. And there's also the contractor, and we're a little bit glad right now, bought the pipes to hold the price on the pipes in 2024. And so he bought the pipes. They're held in a secure spot. Our engineer went out and inspected, make sure they're all there. So that's what a large part of that is that he sort of saw the writing on the wall and got ahead of that, buying the material.
All right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? That's it. Back to you, Councillor.
Thank you. So that concludes committee of the whole agenda. Now we move into our regular meeting.
It is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that the consent agenda for the council and committee of the whole meeting held on April the 1st, 2025 be approved as presented.
Comments or questions? I see Madam Mayor has her hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to request that the minutes of the last council meeting just be pulled out to be approved separately, please.
Okay, so that would be the consent agenda less the minutes of the meeting of the council for March the 18th.
Okay, so is it those in favor of the resolution as amended? Or do we do an amendment?
The rest of the consent agenda with that.
Okay, so for the two items, the Eau Chateau Board of Management minutes and bylaw 2025-32, for those two to be approved under the consent agenda. All those in favor? It's carried.
Now we have the minutes of March 18th.
Sorry, Madam Clerk.
No, I'm just going to grab them out of my package. Not with the resolutions. It is moved by Council.
1 second.
Yeah, I need a mover and a seconder for the minutes of March 18th, please.
Mover and second?
Yes, please. It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor. It resolved that the minutes of the council and committee of the whole meeting held on March the 18th, 2025 be adopted as presented.
So I'll open that for questions. Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to note that under section 5.5, which is the Sewer and Water Committee, they has the one item, PFAS, but there's no commentary under it.
Oh my goodness.
The council did authorize to move forward with the testing on that.
That is just an oversight. We will amend them.
Yeah, so if I could just request that amendment and then that's fine. Thank you.
Be it resolved that the minutes of council and committee of the whole meeting held on March 18th be adopted as amended.
I think Councillor Larrabee had a question.
Thank you. Also, under 5.3 of the Public Works Committee, I reading the notes of the Denonville, and not one place that stated that we agreed to make those notes public.
Under 5.3?
5.1.
5.1, okay.
5.3.1, I think is what he is referring to.
So your question is that there's something missing from the minutes?
Yes.
There was a statement by Councillor Fadin talking about releasing the document to one of the proponents. And then council had a show of hands directing staff to release that.
So at the end, staff was directed to provide the information to the affected residents.
Resident who
Resident.
requested it.
Comfortable with that amendment? The amendment?
That would be the,
So the minutes of March 18th as amended.
Any other questions or comments around those minutes? Seeing any, all those in favor? It's carried.
It is moved by council, oh, we're into new business.
No, we have the correspondence. So I'll just, under correspondence, we have two items that were included in your package. They were both reports from the Integrity Commissioner and two different items. Those, like I mentioned, are in your package. Are also online in the package for the public if they'd like to review those. We don't have any motion forward for that. I don't know if there's any questions related to it. Councillor Fedin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question through you for Mr. Barbeau. Do we know the cost of these two investigations yet?
Through you, Mr. Chair, typically we've just received the report, so there might be additional costs and we don't necessarily have a roll-up, but thanking you in advance for your question ahead of time allows us to prepare so we don't have to delay it. I did mention to Ms. Craddock if she had knowledge of any of the document or any of the costs to be ready, but as I indicated, because we just got the report, so I'm not sure she has that.
As you said, Mr. Barber, I'm not sure I've got all the final invoicing, but the one report is around the $2,200 range. Other reports are around the $2,600 range, and costs incurred to date that I've received.
So they probably add report writing to that? Did you hear that?
Are you okay with that?
Sorry, so we're talking about roughly, what, over $5,000 for both?
So 48 for both right now for costs received so thus far.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I'd also like to say a few words concerning this. First of all, I'd like to thank our Integrity Commissioner, Mr. Kassan, for his thorough investigation and for his conclusions. I'd also like to thank everyone in the community for their overwhelming support since the report was made public last week, and those who reached out and sent me private messages. I just want to say a few things. In his complaint, Mr. Morrison claimed that I made derogatory comments on social media with regards to his construction work. I did no such thing. I didn't refer to construction work. In fact, I didn't even know what was done by a contractor or not done by a contractor. I was simply bringing to the attention of staff the fact that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of local residents, there was a dangerous situation on Levack Road and Leclerc Road with deep cuts in the road and an absence of bump signs at many locations, which could have resulted in an accident or damage to vehicles, especially at nighttime. After alerting staff, the situation was rectified almost immediately. The other thing is, I failed to see how Mr. Morrison could have felt that his reputation was tarnished because a quick check of the Ontario Business Registry revealed at the time and still recently that he's not even a director of deep construction. But seemingly by his own admission in this complaint, he certainly appears to be a shadow director at least. But I wouldn't want to speculate on why this is. I feel the complaints against both me and Councillor Pellerin were frivolous and totally unnecessary and cost the taxpayer a great deal of money for nothing. And finally, I just want to say that I will continue to represent the good people of West Nipissing the way I have and as best I can. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Fedin, for the question, for the responses from staff as well, to provide an update on the costs related to those two reports that were received. If there aren't any other comments or questions, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is, new business.
It is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Whereas at the Committee of the Whole meeting held on March the 4th, 2025, Council received the Asset Management Plan, which was presented and discussed with Council. Be it resolved that the Municipality of West Nipissing Comprehensive Asset Management Plan be approved as presented.
Thank you. So we did have a discussion around that earlier tonight in the Committee of the Whole meeting. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? It's carried.
Moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that the fourth quarter financial report for the Municipality of West Nipissing be received.
Again, any comments or questions on the fourth quarter financial report? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Is that a question?
Yes, it is.
I thought it was a speed vote. I wasn't sure.
No. I just, I'm happy to approve this. I understand it's being provided for information only. I just prefer to see these come into committee so that if council actually has any questions, we can go through it a little bit more closely. I feel coming straight into the regular part of agenda, there's not really the same opportunity as receiving this in committee. So I don't know how the rest of council feels about that, but just if there were questions, it might be more appropriate in committee. Thank you.
That's just a comment made, that's all.
Okay, appreciate the comment, Madam Mayor. All those in favor of receiving the fourth quarter financial report? And that's carried.
It was moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Whereas on April the 5th, 2022, Council for the West Nipissing Municipality granted approval for a draft plan of subdivision, 13 lots and lands legally described as part of Lot 8 concession in the Township of Springer to PRJ Electric Limited. Be it resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality hereby approves the requested extension of the approved draft plan of subdivision until April the 1st, 2027, allowing the applicant subdivider time to complete the required work in order to meet the set terms and conditions.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments on that resolution? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-33 for the property located at Waterfront Drive described as part of Lot 221, Plan 40, be declared surplus and that staff be directed to proceed to dispose of the said property to Darwin and Monique Skeletor for consideration of $15,000 plus HST in accordance with Municipality Bylaw 2021-18.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Just because I think this one was quite a while ago, so I just would like my memory refreshed. This is the small strip of land between, no, that was Riverfront. Where is this property? And when did we talk about it? I'm sorry, I can't recall.
We talked about it last fall. This was a property that was at the back of a property, two properties actually fronting on Ritchie's Road in Cache Bay. There was a lot behind which is fronting on the unopened portion of the Waterfront Drive, and the offer was looking for a lot addition. The other neighbor was approached. They did not wish to proceed, and this owner's going with it.
I appreciate that. I know it was from a while ago, so I just wasn't sure exactly what we were approving. So I just wanted to know before I put my hand up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question. Nothing wrong with seeking clarity before we vote on these things. So thanks for the response as well. Any other questions or comments on this resolution? Not seeing any. All those in favor? It's carried. It's just very quickly before we wrap up, but we did have it's April Fool's Day today, and for those who reviewed their package thoroughly, we saw that there was a resolution where we may have proclaimed Monday as a public holiday, but we appreciate staff's efforts into keeping things light here as well. We deal with a lot of significant issues, so I appreciate that.
Unless you want to.
That on the floor, whose straw poll would like to declare Monday as a holiday. Cause havoc in the workforce, but I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Councilor Larrabee did mention that he may have something under notice of motion.
Yes, I have a notice of motion to be discussed at next meeting on the file of the Denonville Bridge. My understanding, it was public, and I could, as councillor, could access that file. And so I would like to discuss this further.
I think just for clarity, I'll look to staff for process.
I don't know that you can file a notice of motion. I don't know that matters. If council, and I reviewed the minutes, council clearly indicated to get a document to the individual, but obviously if we get a document to an individual, if the other councillors, any one of them wanted to have one, as I indicated to you personally, we certainly would have released it. So there doesn't need to be a motion to do that. If any councillors want a copy of that report, then certainly as council, you'd be, you wouldn't have any standard that's lower than the proponent who asked it. So, to clarify the public record, the request was to give Mr. Robinson, I think his name was, the document. We gave him the document. If the request would have been give Mr. Robinson and everybody else the document, we'd have done that too. So it doesn't need to be harder than that. So if you want the document, Councillor Larrabee, happy to provide it for you. There's no secret. It's the same document we give to one of your constituents.
Now there's not an issue for me to get it.
There was never an issue. It's just never asked of us. We were never asked for it. The minutes or the film that we looked at and the recollection of all of staff was from Councillor Fadin asking at the meeting prior to, there was a request made for the report. Do you have a problem, Mr. Barbo, releasing that report? I said, no, it's probably a public report. We'll look at any FOI issues, and if the council so directs us to release the report, we will. Then there was a show of hands, and council said, release the report. We released the report. If Mr. Lair, or if you, or if Councillor Fadin would have indicated, and we'd like a copy of the report as well, then certainly I would have given it at that time. There's no issue. It just wasn't, we weren't directed. So, if I knew you wanted the report, I'd give you the report.
I would like to have a copy of the report.
So there's no real need for a notice of motion.
Thank you.
Great. Again, thanks for the clarification. Councillor Fedin?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, can I have a copy of the report also, please?
If council so yeah, sure.
Okay.
Anybody else before? I don't want to offend anybody else now. You all want a report? Okay.
Okay, we have the mayor's report and announcements. I'm not sure if Madam Mayor wants to share anything.
I'll just share two things quickly. I think tomorrow evening, the North Bay Chamber of Commerce is hosting a networking event at Club Calumet. I wish I knew what time it started. I think it's 5, but I think people can find the information online. And I'd also just like to mention that the public information session in regards to the Tomiko Fire Station is tomorrow night. And please, Mr. CAO, correct me if I'm wrong, at 6 p.m. or is it 6:30?
I believe it's 6:30, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Other than that, I will leave it so we can go into closed and wrap. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I just had one other thing I'd like to add very quickly. We can call it the deputy mayor's report. I don't know if that's amending the agenda, but just a reminder to folks, I know we're in fairly turbulent political times in the bigger scope of Canada, and just a reminder that the election is coming up on a very special day, April 28th. Also happens to be the deputy mayor's birthday. Just for everyone to please, educate yourself and get out there and vote. It's a democratic right that we have, and please encourage folks online as well to get out there and support whichever political group you choose to support, but please vote.
And bring a gift.
And bring a gift to the deputy mayor. So that's it for me. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that we proceed into closed meeting as authorized in Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to discuss the following: labor relations or employee negotiations regarding the non-union employee compensation review.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? It's carried.
So for those participating online, I'm going to end the meeting. If you just come back in on the same link, I'm just going to close this meeting so I have a separate recording.